Hades does not come to Olympus. So when he wishes to communicate with his brother Zeus or any of the other gods who dwell in the celestial halls of Olympus, he sends an emissary. And this emissary arrived one day in the vast halls of Olympus, perched upon Zeus's throne upon the arm. For the emissary in question was a carrion crow who had flown up from the lands deep beneath the earth. And when he alighted upon the arm of Zeus's throne, a great chill spread throughout the divine halls. And the bird began to croak and spoke in the voice of Hades himself, and said, "Brother Zeus, I am displeased." And Zeus, who was fairly used to gods complaining that they were displeased, but not to hearing much of anything from his brother in the land below, listened. And the bird explained on behalf of its master Hades how Asclepios, son of Apollo, had offended him. Long had Asclepios practised medicine throughout the lands of Greece, so much so that his skills were perfected and in immense demand from the rich and the famous as well as from the poor and the humble, for Asclepios was as much likely to treat a beggar by the roadside as he was to go and treat a king or a queen. He had learnt cures for, practically everything somewhere along the line. Every injury, every disease, every ailment of the mind or of the body that a person might suffer from. And he went from village to village, from city to city, from town to town, treating the pained, the needy, the unhappy, the despairing, the agonized of their various conditions. And this the bird in the voice of Hades complained about at great length. For, you see, they are not dying in the rate that they used to die, my brother. I am being denied my due. For these humans, who might have been dead in their 40s or their 50s, and almost every one of them would have been dead by their 60s, very few surviving to their 70s, fewer still to their 80s, almost nobody to their 90s, were now living longer and longer and longer, because Asclepios went round treating them, and not just treating them with ointments and medicaments and surgeries and so forth, but educating them on how to avoid ailments, how to adjust their diets, how to engage in exercise, what to do for themselves should they suffer this or that malady. And so it wasn't just the odd one or two people here or there that Asclepios had managed to get to the deathbeds of and treat and keep them alive longer. It was a growing number of people who were learning the wisdom of Asclepios, being able to keep themselves going for longer and longer. And Zeus sat in his great throne with that ice-cold crow perched on the arm of his chair, looking at him with its beady eye, and he thought, this is indeed a problem, but Asclepios is half divine. He is the son of Apollo. What can I do? And Apollo is the god of healing. He is the one who spreads health through his springs and his warm waters upon the earth that people go to bathe in and go to drink. What can I do? You must do something, recited the crow. It is worse than merely extending the lifespans of these mortals. And the crow went on to explain how Asclepios had breached, as far as Hades was concerned, the worst possible breaches of the great divine contract that kept him down there in the lands of the dead. Hippolytus was mine, was in my grasp, when Asclepios, to please his father's sister, snatched Hippolytus from my grip. And Zeus, who is not all-knowing, but is familiar with most things, recalled to mind the fate of Prince Hippolytus, who had so grievously offended Aphrodite by rejecting her sensual caresses, not just her own sensual caresses, but rejecting the sensual caresses of every woman, indeed of every man who might wish to caress him in a sensual fashion. For Hippolytus was a lifelong virgin, a devotee of Artemis, of the hunt. That was his passion. That's what stirred his heart. That's what got him sweaty and hot, not the seductive charms of the goddess of love. And Aphrodite is not one to be rejected. I mean, in fairness, none of the gods are, but Aphrodite is particularly keen to deal with those who will not accept her realms and reverence her. And so she had struck Hippolytus down, and he had fallen in front of his own horses and been trampled to death by them. And his soul, of course, as soon as his body was broken and dead upon the field, descended down, down, down into the cold grip of Hades, who allocates the dead to their place in the afterlife. And it would seem, from what this bird was saying, that Asclepios had not simply learned how to treat practically every known ailment, had not simply learned how to encourage long life through good diet and exercise and various other interventions, but he was now plucking the dead from their graves, restoring life to the corpse. And Hippolytus walked the earth once more, serving Artemis, the goddess of the hunt. "And it is not the only one," said the crow, and recounted tales of Glaucus, of others who had been plucked from the infernal realms, from the deathly realms. "Is he to denude the entire realm of Hades?" asked the bird. And at once Zeus held his head in his hands and saw the problems that might beset him, might beset the entire planet. For if no one was to die as they lived longer and longer and longer, and if, to add insult to injury, those already dead were to be pulled from the grave and restored to some kind of new life, though the planet would be overrun with humans. It was difficult enough managing the populations of rabbits or rats or other creatures that bred at great rate, but humans unchecked by illness, unchecked by old age, unchecked by death, well, there would be millions upon millions, if not billions upon billions of them everywhere, eating and eating and eating and consuming until the entire world would be a burnt-out husk. And what need would they have to turn to the gods if they had no concerns of death and the afterlife? Well, Zeus felt the anger bubbling within him, just as clearly it was bubbling ice cold in the heart of Hades. And Zeus looked from his great throne down upon the earth, and there his eye found Asclepios. And a great thunderbolt roared from the hand of Zeus, flew through the ether, down, 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 until it smote Asclepios. And the great healer, the great doctor, the great physician who had saved so many and taught so many and done so much good, lay dead upon the earth, his soul descending down, down, down into the grip of Hades. But as soon as that thunderbolt struck, it sent a ripple out across the world. And Apollo, golden, radiant, divine Apollo, felt in his heart the death of his own beloved son, the son whom he had raised, whom he had taught the arts of healing and medicine, felt the wrath of Zeus go through the world, and, well, dead is dead. And as much as he might want to intervene and stop the death, not even Apollo can stop what has already happened. And he roared and he raged and he imprecated and he called to Zeus in the heavens and said, "You have killed my son is dead." And the world went dark and grey as the radiant light of Apollo withdrew from the world. And Zeus, fearing that he had replaced one terrible problem with another terrible problem, reached out a hand to Apollo and said, "My child, I cannot restore his body and let him walk the earth, resurrecting the dead, extending life beyond its limits. But I can take his spirit, take his soul, and place it up in the heavens to be a divine light radiating down upon the earth, a guide, just as sailors look to the skies to steer their course in their ships, so healers can look to the skies to steer their course, to find their way in the seas of medicine." And so the soul of Asclepios was placed in the heavens and became the constellation Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer, for he had often been seen walking the earth with a staff around which two serpents entwined, which of course is why that staff, a gift from Hermes, is to this day a symbol of the healing profession. And even though his body has long since rotted away to nothingness in the soil of Greece, his soul continues to guide those who follow the healing arts, doctors and nurses and psychiatrists and dentists and all manner of healers, both orthodox and unusual in the arts to this very day. And Apollo is to some degree mollified and restored his light to the world and his warmth to the world, and Hades in the land of the dead is pleased that he continues to receive the souls of the dead, that disease continues to limit life, and humanity remains most decidedly mortal.